Hey all, a couple weeks ago, Rockstar just dropped 63 new GTA 6 screenshots with details on how you can pre-order. And within 24 hours, the internet does what the internet does best. Old schoolers like the ones on NeoGAF dug up a word I haven't heard of in 10 years, and it became pasted all over the gaming sites. They called these screenshots Bullshots. They claimed these screenshots were faked. They were doctored in Photoshop. They were way too polished. They were way too pretty. Dang, Earl, there ain't no way this is going to look like this on my PlayStation. Look, I totally understand. These images are downright bangers. You've got ray trace reflections all over the place, almost like they ran out of places to put them. They're in puddles, windshields, chrome, and even in the guns. Jason and Lucia look like they have hair that had their own stylist who meticulously and rendered it strand by strand. Luxury car commercials don't get lighting that's actually this good. It looks too perfect, way too perfect. So the question I want to answer today is not the fanboy question. It's not, is Rockstar trying to pull one over on us? Or it's not, yo, why is Digital Foundry hating on my favorite developer? It's a simple question. Are these screenshots fake? And the honest answer is that it's much more complicated than either side wants it to be. The people going cray-cray and yelling fake are partly right. And the people defending Rockstar like they're their own relatives, dude, they don't even know you even exist, are also partly right. When I look at these, what makes me think that the screenshots aren't actually fake is the stuff that is actually busted in them. So hang on for a few more minutes, compadre, because that's the part most people are actually totally glossing over. So I know what you're asking, who's this geezer who looks like Terry A. Davis and talking about games? I spent 14 years in the games industry, including time at studios such as Epic Games on the production side. I worked with talented art directors there to generate some of the most legendary bullshots in video game history. I mean, check out these babies from Gears of War 3. Ever try to get a Lambert to pose while running amok? Or getting a locust to smile before getting curb stomped? It's all about the bullshot, baby. And so that means I've been around the way that games actually get built, packaged, approved, marketed, and then shipped out the door. Producers try to fill in a lot of roles in video games, but I'm not a graphics engineer. I'm not going to sit here pretending I can tell how many pixels are in a compressed screenshot and tell you what the render resolution is like I know what the heck I'm talking about. I stay out of those lanes. Digital Foundry already did the technical breakdown, and frankly, that's exactly who you want doing it. They're better at that than almost anyone. What I can give you is the other half of the conversation, the production side and the marketing side, since we work with them hand in hand to give them materials they need to market the game. Because most of the panic around these screenshots is coming from people who have never foot in a gaming studio when the marketing team is banging down your door for you to go out and wrestle up some screenshots for some influencers. Once you've been in those situations, this whole shebang looks a lot less mysterious. It's nothing scandalous, it's just another day at the video game studio. Let's start what we actually know. So Rockstar opened up pre-orders for GTA 6. The standard edition is at $79.99 and the ultimate edition is at $99.99. The release date we know of now is November 19th. And along with all that, they dropped 63 new screaming screenshots promoting the Ultimate Edition and the Vintage Vice City Pack. And we got lots of screenshots with gear and tattoos, vehicles, weapons, outfits and hairstyles. Everything looks polished, posed, and presented with a nice little bow. But here's the detail most people are oblivious to when looking at these screenshots. Rockstar did not say what platform these screenshots were captured on. There wasn't a PS5 logo. There wasn't a PS5 Pro logo. There wasn't an Xbox Series X logo. They didn't say it was captured on a console. They didn't say anything. And that's very important. What a company doesn't say is often just as important as what it does say. Sometimes even more so. Remember that, because we're going to come back to that point in a little bit. So, let's get to the meat of this. Let's talk about the word that someone resurrected. The word is bullshot. It's an old term. That oldie but a goodie was back in the PS3 and Xbox 360 era when I was making games and people were at each other's throats. When publishers would release screenshots that were clearly not representative of the actual game experience. The pics were shown at a higher resolution than the game ran at. The edges were cleaned up by the art directors. There weren't any jaggies, and there was better lighting. Sometimes you could just see the Photoshop touches dripping from it if you look for the right Gaussian blurs in the corners. They wanted you to believe that's what the game actually looked like, but it was dragged through a marketing fantasy machine. That's where the term comes from. But here's where the current conversation in regards to Rockstar's screenshots get completely skewed. People are using Bullshot to mean two completely different things, and those things are not the same accusation. The first meaning of Bullshot is the screenshot was staged, the characters were posed, the lighting was adjusted, the camera was placed perfectly, and the scene was dressed up to look as good as possible. That's definition number one. So the second definition is the screenshot was rendered on a hardware that you and I will actually never own. A monster development PC worth thousands of dollars, or some internal build running at settings your console could not dream of touching. Those are not the same thing. One is actually normal. The other one is a much bigger deal. And right now, people are acting like proving the first automatically proves the second exists. It doesn't. So let's separate those out. Because this is where we're going to need some adults in the room to break up all the fanboys from across the aisles fighting each other. So were the screenshots staged? Yes. Obviously, of course they were. 100%. Digital Foundry said it plainly. These are promotional images. The characters are leaned up against cars in ways that look composed. Lighting is arranged to make the shot look awesome. The poses are just too clean. And some character lighting does not appear to match where practical light sources should be coming from in the scene. In other words, those screenies were built to sell you the game. But I need people to hear this loud and clear. That is not unusual. That is not deceptive. That is how marketing images work. Every major game does this. Every game you love to play does this. Every game you actually are out there defending does this. Nobody ships a screenshot where the character is in mid-blink, the lighting is flat, the camera is boring, and the scene looks like somebody from QA accidentally hit pause. The art director or lead artist picks the angle, they pose the character, they compose the scene, they fill in all the right lighting, and they make the product look good. That's not a conspiracy. That's a product photo. You don't walk into Burger King or Wendy's or McDonald's, point at the placard above the registers and say, "Excuse me, sir, this burger was clearly photographed under professional lighting with a food stylist." Of course it was. That's the point. So if by Bullshot you mean a staged promotional image, then yes, that's what it is. They're Bullshots. But that's not where the real story lies. Let's get to it. The real accusation is actually the second one. Were the screenshots captured on hardware that does not represent the console version that people are actually going to play? Were they taken from a high-end PC build? Were they rendered at settings that the PS5 or even the PS5 Pro cannot handle in real gameplay? That's the important question. And the honest answer is, nobody outside Rockstar knows. Digital Foundry doesn't know. I don't know. The people yelling about it on X or Twitter don't know. And anyone pretending they know for sure is selling you a load of horse pucky. So if I were logically looking at these shots, here's how I'd break it down. What do we have that's confirmed? The second GTA 6 trailer was captured on a base PS5. Rockstar put that out there. They said that. And that matters. Because when they had a console claim they had to make, they actually made it. So if we look at the screenshots and take an educated guess from what we know, these screenshots look extremely expensive from a rendering standpoint. They are shot in native 4K. They have lots of expensive ray trace reflections. They are very clean and they have lots of detail. That combination is a little bit hard to believe as it being a real-time, on your base console as a representative of gameplay. On even beefier hardware, it raises questions. And that's a solid technical read of the material that they put out. But then we have some speculation that's out there. Some people take a look at those educated guesses and build it into, this must be a secret PC build. Maybe, it could be. That has not been confirmed. That is a pure guess. And I'm not going to say it's true just because it's something maybe plausible. Plausibility is not proof. And that's a line more people need to respect. Now, here's the interesting part. And if I could tell you, honestly, it's the part to change how I looked at the screenshots. If these were fake in a way people were implying, meaning that they were pre-rendered CGI, cinematic footage, not the real game engine, they would actually probably be cleaner. And that's the point of faking something. You fake it to hide the ugly stuff. You fake it to make it look perfect. But these screenshots are not perfect. Digital Foundry found several mistakes and listed them out. For example, the hair has a dithered, grainy quality up close. Jason's facial hair does not look incredible in every shot or trimmed up. Reflections on smooth surfaces look beautiful, but the reflections on choppy water get really noisy. There is some aliasing, there are imperfect shadows, and depth of field blur is not always clean. There are artifacts, and there were compromises that were made. That makes a big difference because those imperfections are not proof that the screenshots were fake. They're actually proof that they're real. So let me elaborate. Real-time game engines leave fingerprints on any sort of output. They all have trade-offs. They have places where the compute power just isn't there to render the image they're asked to render. They use techniques to make an object look amazing in one situation, and as you put it in a different situation, it looks totally crappy. That's the way real-time engineering works. A pre-rendered fake would not show you the noisy water reflections. It would not show you the dithered hair. Any art director working with those consoles would not need to preserve those little flaws unless they deliberately left them in, which makes no sense if the whole goal was to deceive people with the perfect image. And the best plot twist to all of this is the flaws people are using to attack the screenshots may be the strongest evidence that these are coming from the actual game engine and they're not a movie and they're not a CGI fake, the actual game engine. So were they staged? Yep. Were they idealized by something that the art director wanted? Absolutely. Were they captured in a dev environment? Probably. So when you're playing a game, is this going to be your average gameplay frame on a base PS5? I wouldn't bet my bottom dollar on that. But fake, that's actually a harder case to make. And that brings us back to the part I told you I was going to come back to. And remember, Rockstar did not say what these screenshots were running on. That silence is not something that's random. On the second trailer, they told us it was rendered on a base PS5. This time, nothing was said. And from a producer's eye, that is a choice. Because when you can confidently say, this is running on the console you're buying or you're actually playing on, you say it. That's powerful marketing that builds trust and that shuts people up. So when a company chooses not to say it, I don't automatically assume they are trying to fake you out. But I do start to pay attention because what they may be doing is showing you the best case version of the game. That is in-engine. It's very carefully staged and probably captured under very controlled conditions. They are not attaching a platform guarantee to those images, and that's not necessarily Rockstar lying. It's Rockstar being very, very careful. And there's a difference, and the difference matters. Here's a little irony that anyone who has worked around production can see from a mile away. When the pre-orders launched, PlayStation and Rockstar are out there pushing the message that GTA plays best on a PS5. They're selling the console relationship super hard. But these specific screenshots, there's no console label on there. It's the same marketing cycle. But this is a different level of commitment from both companies. And that is not a scandal. That is how the marketing machine works. So let's recap a little since there are two groups online trying to shout over each other right now. One group is saying it's all fake, Rockstar lied. They're totally overreacting. The evidence does not support that. The flaws in these images make them look more like real-time game engine captures, not anything more. And staging a promotional screenshot is not the same thing as fabricating something in the game. The other group is saying, Digital Foundries are all just Rockstar haters. It's obviously real gameplay. Yo, just deal with it. So they're overreacting too. These are most certainly fabricated images. The characters are all dressed up, they are staged, and they may be captured from a build or an environment that is not identical to what you will see when you're actually playing this on your console on launch day. And if you expect your base PS5 to handle every mode of GTA 6 at its exact level of detail, pixel for pixel, you're going to be setting yourself up for disappointment. The truth is actually less dramatic. These screenshots are probably real in-engine captures, but they are also the best case marketing images designed to make the game as good as possible. Both things can be true, and that's the part the internet hates. So my take is that I don't think these screenshots are fake. I don't think this is some giant con that Rockstar is running, and I don't think you should look at them as a floor or a basis of what every second of gameplay will look like on your console. They're staged, they're in-engine, and they are best case. They are probably captured under conditions that Rockstar is not fully explaining, but they are impressive. They are super detailed. Honestly, the more I looked at the flaws, the more impressed I became, since those imperfections they left in made the whole thing feel less like a lie and more like the Rage engine is being pushed to its ultimate limits. And that's a more interesting story than, wow, screenshot is so fake. So to recap in a couple sentences, not a lie, not a fake. It's not normal gameplay either. Best case, it's an in-engine capture for promotional materials. That's my final answer. If that's the kind of breakdown you want with no hype and no pretending obvious marketing as some grand conspiracy meant to defraud us gamers, please subscribe. That's the whole point of this channel. And tell me in the comments, after seeing this breakdown, are you more or less impressed by these screenshots? Because I genuinely started out being more skeptical by what I was seeing, and by the time I was done looking at them, I was more impressed than when I started. So the next time, we're staying with these same screenshots, but we're wading into a different internet turf war. Oh goody. Because half the internet was yelling fake, and the other half started yelling, hey, yo, it's a downgrade. There's one screenshot of Jason's safe house that people are using as proof GTA looks worse than it did in the trailer. And here's the thing that I saw. Those puddles didn't disappear because someone got lazy. It just stopped raining. One house, 2 screenshots, and I'll dive into why they don't look the same. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.